looked at your introduction to configuration management, understanding what is configuration management, why we need configuration management, why it is important. We have also looked at the different type of tools we have in configuration management. So we have Ansible, Chef, Puppet, SaltStack, Juju. So all these are your configuration management tools. Then we also looked at your push-based and pull-based configuration management, right? So we also looked at the differences that we have between them, and then we start off with your Ansible, right? So we've looked at what is Ansible, what are the features it provides. So the main feature of your Ansible is that it is agentless, right? So we don't have to install Ansible or the agent on all the machines. We just have to install Ansible on only one machine, and we call that machine as your control machine. And then from there we can start um, connecting to all of your remote machines. Now, if you're on Linux machine, if your remote machines are Linux machines, then by default, Ansible uses SSH for the connectivity. And you can also connect to Windows machine from Ansible, just so you know. But we will be looking at your Linux machine. So by default, it uses your SSH for the connectivity. Okay, so that is where we had stopped, I guess. I'm sharing my screen. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, Ravi.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
So, so next we are going to look at your architecture of your Ansible. Okay. So this is the architecture. It's a very simple architecture you have. You'll have one machine which is called as your control machine. So control machine is basically the machine where we have installed your Ansible. So any machine where you install Ansible, we call that machine as your control machine. And this control machine, there are two main components. So we have the playbook, and then we have the inventory. Now, playbook is simply your script. Okay, the instructions that you want to execute on the remote machine, we provide that in the playbook. And then inventory is basically the information about the remote machine. So, the last session also I told you that your Ansible needs information about the remote machine. So how does your Ansible know to which machine it has to connect? That information we provide in your inventory file, and then you'll have your remote machines. All right, so you can have n number of remote machines, and your Ansible will basically read this inventory file, get the address of the remote machines, and it will start connecting to those machines by SSH, which is the default. So we install Ansible, we specify the IP addresses, we specify the playbook, which is your instructions, the script. And then when we execute this script, Ansible will read this inventory file, connect to the remote machines over SSH by default, and start executing these scripts on the remote machine. So that is basically how your Ansible works. Any questions?
No, Ravi.
Okay. Just 1 minute. Let me get my headset. Just give me a minute. Okay, sorry. Yeah, so that's basically your architecture of your Ansible. Very simple architecture and very straightforward way of working with your Ansible. But if you understand this, you should be able to easily correlate when we are looking at examples as to how we can work with your Ansible. Okay. So mainly there are two types of machines. When we talk about your deployment, we'll have the control machine. So this control machine is basically where we install your Ansible, and using this machine, we can manage all of your other machines. And then we have your remote machine. So these other machines are basically your remote machines. So any machines which are handled or controlled by your control machine, we call that as your remote machines. Okay. Now there can be multiple remote machines which are handled by one control machine. So for managing remote machines, we have to install Ansible only on one machine, which will be a control machine. So we have only one Ansible machine and then n number of remote machines. Now Windows does not support a control machine. So we cannot use Windows as a control machine, but we can use Windows as a remote machine. Okay. So Ansible can be run from any machine with Python 2 or Python 3 installed. So like, Ansible is a Python tool, right? It is written in Python. So you need to have a Python installed on the machine where you're trying to install your Ansible. Okay, so now let's look at your installation part. So again, installation is pretty straightforward. If you're on Amazon Linux AMI, you can run this instruction. If you're on Ubuntu, then you can run this instruction. And if you're on Red Hat or anything like that, then you can run this instruction. So in my case here, I have two machines. Okay, so one of this machine will be my control machine where I'll be installing Ansible. And just for the sake of example, I have only one machine, which is going to be my remote machine. Obviously, you can have multiple remote machines, but just for the sake of example, I have gone with one machine. Okay, so control machine is where we are going to install your Ansible, and this is going to be our remote machine. Okay, so to install that, these are the instructions we are going to follow. So let me first connect to this control machine. So that's my remote machine. And first thing, we are going to validate if we have Python or not. So Python version. So we don't have Python, so we'll have to install. Okay, so we can use this apt install Python. So we'll run that. So apt install Python, and this should install Python. Okay, so let me give Python 3. Yeah, so it says Python 3 is already there. So if I check for Python 3 version, you will see that I have Python 3.10.12. So if you're using the Ubuntu AMI, by default, you should have the Python 3 version installed. So you need to have Python. Okay, so that's your step one. Once that is done, we can start installing your Ansible. So we just have to use this apt install Ansible, which will start installing the Ansible tool for us. So here we'll say apt install Ansible, and this should start installing the Ansible tool for us. Okay, and then you can validate by using this Ansible hyphen version, and that should tell you which version of Ansible you have installed. So again, the installation part is pretty straightforward. It's just a couple of commands and you should be good to start with your Ansible tool. So let's wait for this to complete. Okay, so now let's validate. So Ansible hyphen version, and this is what you will see. So we have Ansible version 2.10.8, your module path, Ansible module, executable location, Python versions, all these things you will see. So we have installed our Ansible. Any questions?
No,
No,
Ravi.
sir.
Okay, now with your Ansible, we have a file called config file. In this case, if you see, it says none. But with some of the installation, you might see a configuration file, basically the path. Okay, so I just want to talk a bit about that. So configuration file is basically the settings file for your Ansible. So if you want to change the settings, when I say settings, so I told you that by default your Ansible uses SSH for the connectivity. Now let's say you don't want to use SSH, you want to use Kerberos, which is another option you have. You can make use of, you can update this configuration file. So likewise, there are certain settings that you can adjust for your Ansible by making use of this configuration file. Now, there will be a stock configuration file which is sufficient, but if you feel that you want to change this configuration file for some reason, you can go ahead and change that. So most of the time you will find this configuration file under this location. So let me check if I have anything. It's not there. Let me see where else I can find it. Let's try this. Maybe I don't have it. This particular version of Ansible. Look, it's not there. Plugins. Yeah, maybe it does not have. So here you can see it says none. That means we don't have a default configuration file. Sometimes you will find it with your installation. So these are some of the settings that you might find in your configuration file. So one is ask_pass. So whether an Ansible playbook should prompt you for a password by default. So all this will be commented out by default, meaning this will be disabled by default. But if you want to enable them, you can enable them. So you want to remove your deprecation warnings, or you want to set up your default location file for your inventory or your library. So these are some of the settings that you might find within your configuration files. Okay. Now, the next important thing that you will need to understand with your Ansible is your host file. So I told you that with your Ansible, there are two main things, right? So one is your playbook and the other is your inventory file or the host file. So we can either call it as inventory file or we can call it as your host file. Now your inventory file, so the playbook, like I said, that's your script. Okay, so script or instructions as to what do you want to do on the remote machines. What are you trying to automate, right? Those instructions we will be providing it within your playbooks. And then this inventory file or the host file is basically the address of the remote machines, like the IP address or the DNS. That information we provide it in the inventory file or your host file. Okay, so that's what we're going to look at next. So the Ansible inventory file, so this is where we define the host and the group of hosts upon which commands, modules, and tasks in a playbook operate. So basically the script, where do you want to execute it? We define that in your inventory file. So Ansible works with multiple systems in your infrastructure at the same time. And it does this by selecting portions of the systems listed in the Ansible's inventory file, which defaults to this location. So again, you might find a default inventory file. Obviously, there won't be any remote machines address, but this is where you can find, this is the default path where your Ansible looks for the inventory file. However, if you want to pass your own a different file other than the default one, you can pass it by making use of this -i option. The inventory file can be in one of many formats depending on the plugin you're using. And this file, we write it in the ini format or in the YAML format. So it will be something like this. So this is your ini format and this is your YAML format. So here you can see mail.example.com. That's basically the DNS of the remote machine. Here also you can see foo.example.com, bar.example.com, one.example.com, two.example.com. So basically these are the machines that we are defining within the inventory file. Okay. Now, if you have lots of machines with a similar pattern, something like, let's say you have, let's say 10.1.1.1, and then let's say you have 10.1. 1.1.2, then let's say 10.1 1.3, and then let's say 10.1.1.4. so in the same series, let's say you have 10.1.1. Let's say 50. Okay, for sake of example. Now instead of giving the IP addresses individually, we can also give a range, something like this. So I can say 10.1.1.1, and then I can say 1 colon 50, and my Ansible will understand that these are 50 machines that I'm pointing to. We can do this also. So it can be with your characters, it can be with your numbers, both are valid. Now, when we are defining this inventory file, there are two ways that we can define the address. One is by using grouped name, and the other is ungrouped name. So ungrouped is, as the name suggests, there won't be any grouping of the IP addresses. But let's say you have a group of app servers, you have a group of database servers, you have a group of web servers. Likewise, you have different servers which has specific use cases. You can group them together. So I can tell something like, so let's say when I say grouped servers, it will be something like, let's say app server, and then likewise, let's say I can say web server, and then let's say, and then so on. So this becomes my grouped naming. And ungrouped, basically we won't have any names. It will just have the address, that's all. Now, what's the advantage of using a grouped name is that if you want to target your playbook on certain servers, by default, when we execute the playbook, it gets executed on all the machines by default. But let's say I want to execute my playbook only on the app servers or on the web servers. That's where your grouping is really helpful. So here also you can see I have web servers and then the name, I have DB servers and then the name. So this is the format, square brackets, that's mandatory. The name is user defined. You can give whatever you want, but this is the format. So this is my grouped servers and this is my ungrouped servers. Questions?
No, Ravi.
Okay. Next, let's look at how you can connect to these remote machines. So before we start working with your Ansible, all the remote or your remote machines, we'll have to first establish the connectivity between these two remote machines, the Ansible machine and then the remote machines. Now there are two ways that you can connect to the remote machines. One is using the password authentication, and then the other one is using the SSH authentication, PEM file authentication. I'll show you both. Okay, so first we look at your password authentication. Now, in case of your password authentication, we will have to connect to the remote machine, and then we will have to do some configuration changes on the remote machine. Okay, so let me quickly connect to the remote machine here. So this is going to be our worker machine. So what we have to do is, I have given the instructions here. So we have to go to this file, etc ssh underscore config file, and we have to enable password authentication. By default, if you remember, your EC2 instances does not support password authentication. But if you still want to enable it, this is how you can enable it. So we go to the etc ssh, and here we should be able to see this sshd config file. We are going to edit that. Now here, if you scroll down, you should be able to see where's that? Yeah, here you can see password authentication is set to no. This is why we cannot authenticate using password by default. Now, if you want to enable this, either you can change this to yes, or we can have this in a new line as well. So here I can say yes. We'll save this and we'll do service SSHD restart, and done. Now this machine supports password authentication. Now that we have enabled password authentication, we'll also need to generate a password for this. So we can use passwd. If you want to generate a user, you can do that, or you can simply run this command. So passwd, set your password, confirm the password, and done. Now this is for the root user that we have done. Any questions?
No, Ravi.
Okay, so let's show. 1 minute. Okay. So this is my Ansible machine, and this is our remote machine. So we have enabled the password authentication. Now we will go to the Ansible machine and we will create our inventory file. Okay, so we'll create a file with the name hosts, and we will give the IP address of the remote machine. So you can use IP address or DNS, both works. And let's say we'll call this as remote machine. Okay, and that's the IP address. So we'll save this file, and so we have the inventory file on the Ansible machine, and we have enabled password authentication on the remote machine. Now we need to check whether my Ansible machine is able to connect to the remote machine. So how do we do that? For that, we can simply run this command, Ansible all -m ping and then ask -pass. So here I can say Ansible all -m ping ask -pass. So all of your Ansible commands will begin with the keyword Ansible. All indicates all the IP addresses in the inventory file. So even if you had like 100 machines, I'm telling on all the 100 machines. -m is your module. So which module do you want to execute? So in our case, I want to execute the ping module. So I'm telling ping all the machines that I have mentioned in this inventory file. And then I'm also telling ask me for a password. This remote machine, there's a password authentication. Ask me for the password. So when I run this, it will prompt me for the password that we have set over here, this particular one. So I'll provide that password, and oh, okay. So I also told you that, so I'm getting this warning telling no inventory was passed. So by default, your Ansible will look for the inventory in this location /etc/ansible/host by default, but we don't have this. So you can see no such file or directory. We have created our own host file. So we'll tell Ansible that you use this host file. So with our command, with the command that we're passing, we'll use this -i flag, and then we will say use this file. So we'll give the password, and okay, I need to install SSH pass program. Okay, hold on, give me a minute, let me check. I guess I have to install SSH pass. Okay. Okay, so they're asking us to install a package, this SSH pass program. I guess this is SSH password program. So just running this apt install SSH pass should work. So I'll try this command once again. We'll give the password, and okay. So now this is complaining about host checking. So we'll need to, so I'll tell you what this is complaining about. So it is complaining that, you know, remember the first time when we connect to a machine, it prompts this, right? So it is basically complaining about that. So please add this host's fingerprint to your known host file to manage this host. So we'll have to first run this without this flag. It will prompt this, we will confirm this. When the connection will fail, that's fine. Now the fingerprint has been included. Now let's try this once again. We'll give the password. Okay, invalid password. So I guess this is the password. No, okay. What's the password that I gave? Okay. Not sure what's the password. This is complaining about the password. What was the password? Okay. Okay, 1, 2. Okay. What user are you trying to try this? Okay. I'm missing something. I guess I'm missing something. Okay, so we'll permit root login. We'll set this to yes. I guess that was the problem. Okay, let's try now. Okay, I'll tell you what was the problem. So we had to do two changes. One was enabling this password authentication, and I also had to enable this permit root login. Okay, and now you can see here this connection. So this, it says success. I did a ping and I got a pong response. This means my Ansible machine is able to connect to the worker machine. This is using password authentication. Does it make sense?
Yes, Ravi.
Okay. Next, when this password authentication can become very difficult to work with if you have like hundreds of machines. Now imagine you have hundreds of machines and you want to enable password authentication on them.
We have to log in and then we have to change that.
Yeah,
Very difficult.
it's really difficult. That's where your the keeper authentication is really useful. Okay, so with the keeper authentication, you don't have to do anything on the remote machines. Everything will be done on the Ansible machine itself. So under this, what you'll be doing is, along with your IP address, you'll also be passing a couple of flags. One will be your user. So Ansible underscore user. So which user do you want to use? Now, depending on the machine you're using. So in my case, I'm using an Ubuntu AMI. So my username will be Ubuntu. And then we'll specify the PEM file. So Ansible underscore SSH underscore private key file. And then we'll need to give the path. So this is basically the PEM file should be available on our Ansible machine. So I'm telling, hey, use this username. I have the PEM file available in this location. Using these credentials, you connect to this machine. So it won't prompt us for the password. It will use these credentials and connect to the remote machine. So if you have 100 machines, we just have to repeat these lines here. That's all. We don't have to do anything on the remote machines. Does that make sense?
Yes, Ravi.
So I'll save this file and then we'll create this PEM file here, and I'll give the details in this PEM file. So let me open up my demo key. Okay, so there's my PEM file content. I'll provide that, and I'll set read permissions only. And now we will use this. So Ansible all hyphen I, use this file and try pinging this. Now here, if you see, I'm not passing this flag. This flag is needed only when you want Ansible to prompt for a password. Now we're not using the password authentication. So just run this command and you will see that my machine is able to connect without the password authentication. This is your second method using your key pair authentication. Questions? That's basically how you can connect to the remote machines.
Got it, Ravi.
Bharat, any questions from you? Okay.
No, no, Ravi. My mic was not working.
Sure, okay, no problem. So next, we are going to talk about your command line tools. Okay. So Ansible, it provides you a few tools. So based on the requirement, you can use the tool. So we have the Ansible. So this is what we have been using, right? So any Ansible commands you want to execute, we make use of your Ansible tool. Okay. So define and run a single task playbook against a set of hosts. So any commands or anything you want to execute against a set of hosts, we can make use of your Ansible command. Then you have Ansible playbook. So if you want to work with your playbooks, if you want to execute your Ansible playbooks, then you'll be using this command. Ansible pull will help you to pull your playbooks from your version control system and then execute them from the local machine. So you don't have to maintain the playbooks in your local machine. You can maintain them on a version control tool, like let's say GitHub. And then you can use this Ansible pull to download those playbooks to your local machine and then execute it. Then you have Ansible-doc, which is used to look at the documentation plugin. So it's any documentation related information you want, you can get it by making use of this Ansible doc. So here there are lots of flags that you can pass. So any information that you want. So it's basically your documentation. Then you have Ansible-Galaxy. Now this is used to work with your Ansible roles. We will talk about your Ansible roles later on. Ansible config, which is your read, evaluate, print loop. console. So it's basically your CLI based console to work with your Ansible. So instead of passing commands like Ansible all and then the commands, we can directly pass the commands like, let's say, ping. Okay, or let's say you want to execute something. Okay, you can also get the list of instructions. So here you can see I have the ping module, right? So let me exit from here and show this once again. So I can do this. So Ansible console on this inventory file. Okay, and then I'll do a ping, and you can see. So basically the point is I don't have to use this tool Ansible -i and those things. I don't have to do that. I can straight away go and pass the command. So it's like a CLI based tool for your Ansible. Okay, and then you have the Ansible -config, which can be used to work with your inventory file. So you want to list your configuration file. You want to view the configuration file. You can do that. So let's say I'll do view. So I don't have any configuration file, but if it's there, it will show you to it. So these are the tools that we have. So we will be working with Ansible, Ansible-playbook, and then Ansible-galaxy as well. But these are the options we have. Any questions?
No, Ravi.
Okay. So let's look at how we can work with your Ansible. So there are two ways that we can work with your Ansible. Okay, one is your playbooks. The other way we have is your ad hoc commands. Okay, so one is using the playbooks, which is your scripts, and then you have your ad hoc commands. So these are your one-time commands. So whenever you have a requirement of executing particular instructions on the remote machines only once, so afterwards you won't be needing them, you'll use it as an ad hoc command. But if it's a repetitive work, for example, it's a deployment that you do on a regular basis, like multiple times in a day or multiple times in a week, then you will put them in a playbook. Okay, so whatever we do in the playbook, everything can be done in the ad hoc and vice versa as well. So I'll first show you how you can work with your ad hoc commands. So your ad hoc command uses this user bin Ansible command line tool to automate a single task on one or more managed nodes. So the other restriction we have with your ad hoc command is you can execute only one instruction at a time. Unlike your playbook, where we can execute multiple instructions with one command, ad hoc command can execute only one command at a time. So below is the pattern, the syntax. So we use Ansible, the pattern, -m, the module, and then the option. So if you remember this command, this is an ad hoc command for us. Okay, so use the command line tool. We use the pattern, then we use the this is the inventory file, and then we use the module as to where we want to execute it. So this becomes our ad hoc commands. Okay, so ad hoc task can be used to reboot your servers or copy the file. So rebooting, like it can be a one-time task. You won't be doing it very often, or manage packages, users, and many more. So you can use any module in the ad hoc task. Like let's say you want to reboot your machine, so we can run this command. So we'll look at some examples. So let's say you want to copy some files from your local machine to the remote machine. Okay, so in our case, okay, let's wait. Let's say we'll create one file here. Let's call it as index.html, and let's add some data to this. So let's say we'll say this file was created on the Ansible server. Okay, and now let's say I want to copy this file over to the remote machine. Okay, that's my requirement. We can do that. We have already established the connectivity. So here, this will be the instruction. So Ansible all -m. So again, m is a module. So I want to use the copy module, and then we are passing our options. So -a is used to pass your options. We give the source, and then we give the destination. So source will be your Ansible machine, and then the destination will be your remote machine. So let me connect to this. This is my remote machine. So let me connect to this. So here you will see this is all the files I have. So now let me run this command. So we'll say Ansible all. That's my inventory file. I want to copy, and my src, which is your source. So my source is slash home slash ubuntu slash index.html, and my destination is slash home slash ubuntu. This is on the remote machine. I'll run this, and Ansible will copy the file that I have in my source. Sorry, yeah, that's my destination, in my source to the destination. So now if I go and check, I should be able to see the index file. So earlier I did not have the file, but now I have the file. And if you look at this, you can see the data. I have this data. So likewise, if you had like, let's say, thousands of servers and you wanted to copy this file, imagine how easy it is now, right? I just give all the IP addresses in this file. I set the authentication. I run this command, and Ansible takes care of everything for me. You see how simple it is. So likewise, there are a few more examples here that you can try. So, likewise, you want to create a file on the remote machine. You can do that. So you don't want to copy, you want to create a new file. So I can say Ansible all, sorry. And then the module will be file module, and then destination. So we are not specifying the source. So we'll say slash home slash ubuntu, and let's say ansible.txt. You also have the option of setting permissions if you want to set permissions on the file. So for that, we can use this mode, and let's say we'll set 400, which is your read only. And this will oh, okay, sorry, this is an existing file it is asking about. Sorry. There should be a way to create a file as well. And this is okay. This is to set the permissions for the existing file. Yeah, okay. So it's no, there should be a way to create new files. I thought there was a way. It looks like it's not there. So this is all to manage the permissions on the files. Okay, so I can do this then. So if you see here currently, these are the permissions we have: read, write, read, write, read. Now let's say I want to update this permission. So I can go ahead and do this. File, and then dest, we'll say slash home slash ubuntu slash index.html, and then mode would be 400, which is read only. And now if I go and check, you see here it has modified the permission. So earlier it was read, write, read, write, read, and now we have read only. So you see how your Ansible works. Any questions?
No, Ravi, understood. I'll try to rewatch the video again and tomorrow, and then if I have any questions, I'll ask you on Monday.
Yeah, definitely. So likewise, you want to delete files, you can do that. So absent is basically to delete the files. I'll stop here, but then in the next session, I'll also be showing you how you can install packages, how I can create users, how you can manage the services, and then we'll start off with your playbooks. Okay.
Sure, Ravi.
Cool. Thanks, guys. That's all for today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ravi. Take
It's a
care.
long weekend. So have a good weekend, and happy Pongal in advance. I'll see you
Thank
guys
Uh,
on Tuesday.
Thank you. Same to you, sir.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.